Unlocking Your World of Creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, nestled in the heart of Idaho's mountain wilderness, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Discover the difference in their premium beans, meticulously roasted to capture the essence of the mountains. Now, listeners of our podcast can get an exclusive 10% discount. Just use the promo code CREATIVITY at checkout. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity. We travel around the globe talking to creative practitioners and experts of all kinds about how they get inspired and how they organize their ideas, and most of all, how we gain the confidence and the connections to get our work out into the world. And today we're going to explore ways to help writers like you access your creative flow and free your voice and write life-changing, if not award-winning, books. And my guest is Lisa Tenner. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Mark. It's great to be here with you.
It's fantastic to talk to you as a book coach and author, a creativity catalyst. I love that word, catalyze. Your newest book is Breathe Right. Breathe. These 18 energizing practices to spark your writing and free your voice. What a perfect title that puts the whole process in just 3 words. How did that begin for you, and how did you begin to formulate and simplify this approach?
I would say with my first book, which was more than 2 decades ago, The Ultimate Guide to Transforming Anger, I hit upon sort of 5 elements for getting in a state of flow. And I think that informed my work for a long time. And so some of the exercises in this book come from that time. And as I became a book coach, the work I delved into. But this book, I would say the seminal moment was in Qigong class. And I was so fortunate. We had this amazing teacher who ended up teaching her classes literally a block from my house. I would sneak through my neighbor's yard up her driveway. Actually, she did give me permission, but I'd go up through her driveway right to this church behind my house, and she would teach there 4 days a week. So it was very intensive and beautiful practice. And I found that in class, I would get all these ideas. As soon as we started that deep breathing and movement and that mindful space, the ideas would just flow. And I'd be searching around for a scrap of paper and a pen in this church hall to find somewhere to write down these ideas and capture them. And it started out with a lot of like little stories, some of them about even about life in my little neighborhood, but that tied into some writing lesson, and of course tying them to these practices that seem like this portal into creative inspiration.
All of us creatives can relate to, we got to find a napkin, a scrap of paper, the back of a magazine. Could somebody give me a receipt? Something, you got to capture these ideas. But I wanted to highlight now and go back to the idea of breath work as a
Mhm.
foundation of all of this. There's so many places and ways that we can use our breath. But I love the fact that maybe it sparks our creativity. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think we often write about the things we most need to learn, right? And I was always a shallow breather, definitely like just breathing up here. My consciousness was always right up in my brain. I was like a head attached to a body. And that deep breathing into the abdominal cavity did not come with ease. I think that it was very constrained in that area. And I would say in my early life when I tried to do deep breathing, like it was really hard. And I think that Qigong gave me this access because you are moving. It's a lot easier for me to get mindful when there's some movement. But that deep breath, we know scientific research that deep breathing relaxes the body, and relaxation and deep breathing both help us to get in it helps get into a flow state. It helps enhance our creativity. And I think it's interesting because exercise can do that too. And I think the Qigong marries the two, that deep breathing and the exercise, the movement. So it's an incredibly powerful tool.
Mhm. And certainly, if you just take a moment and maybe be present with your breath. That's one thing. But are there specific exercises or techniques of breathing that you found help you and your clients?
Yeah, there are a lot actually. So one is just going deeper and breathing into the what we call in Qigong the lower dantian, but that area 3 finger width below the belly button where you're expanding the diaphragm down into that area. So that can be very powerful in itself. But also in the book, I talk about the polarity yoga breaths. So a long time ago, I was sick with chronic fatigue and I was looking for things that would help me, and polarity therapy turned out to be amazing. It's a system of energy practices and some modified Kundalini yoga and a whole bunch of different practices, dietary, that this osteopath in Austria combined from living in China, living in India, and learning deeply about these traditions. So that really helped me heal. And one of the things, and because of that, I studied it because I was so fascinated. And one of the things we learned about were these 5 elemental breaths. There's water, air, earth, fire, and ether. And these breaths are really simple. The air breath is in through the mouth, out through the mouth. Earth breath in through the nose, out through the nose. Water in through the nose, out through the mouth. Ether is the hardest. That is in through the nose and mouth, out through the nose and mouth, and it takes a little practice. But each of them creates a different experience in the body and can help us in different ways. 2 breaths that I really love for writers are the water breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, which water is all about flow, right? And so it's just a perfect breath to get things flowing. But also the earth breath, if you are working on foundational things like what's my book concept or what's the structure of this article or this book or whatever I'm working on, structure is an earth quality, and the earth breath is great in through the nose, out through the nose. It's very grounding. It really helps with structure, but also if you're up in your head and if you want like some physical details, right? Sensory details, that's all earthy kind of stuff. So I find that's a really helpful breath also in recalling memories or getting that sensory detail into your writing. And then the ether breath I haven't used with authors because it is a little more complicated, but the ether breath is amazing at creating space. So I think that, and actually I haven't used it much myself. So this is inspiring me. I think I'm going to try the ether breath and I'll let you know. I'll report back.
That's fantastic. I wanted to also then connect this to the coaching practices that you use with authors, which are very much tips and techniques and methods and so forth. But it's interesting how you would weave in now this breath work to, as we've talked about, free the flow.
Yeah, so I do work on Zoom with groups, and we start our group with movement and breath. With one of my favorite qigong practices is qigong bouncing and shaking, and I guess it's now a TikTok sensation, so people are seeing it more. But it's a really wonderful way to relax the entire body, and when we're relaxed, it's we're in a more receptive state for creative flow. But also, I think in Chinese thought, Taoist thought, and Chinese traditional medicine, for example, stuck energy or stagnant energy is considered the reason for a lot of the diseases and imbalances in the body. I think it also is what we're talking about when we say, "Oh, I'm stuck," or "I have writer's block." I think it really is. There's a stagnancy somewhere. And when we do this bouncing, it's like we're moving and things start moving, and it really helps with the writing. And if you think of how sedentary our lifestyles are, that contributes, I think, to any challenges we have with our writing. And that movement helps us access just whole new universes, and of course, probably all writers are familiar with, "Oh, I went for a walk and my head cleared and I got all these ideas."
Mhm.
So, that's a wonderful way to work too. But the bouncing is very quick, and we do that. We do sometimes do some other qigong practices. There's one to connect with your essence, release anything that's not yours, and It's a wonderful one to also expand your field and connect with the field of your book, right? And to energetically release anything that doesn't belong in the book. So it helps you get really focused. And often, if I forget to do that one in class, people will remind me, like, oh, let's do the
What
Esther.
about? Yeah.
Yeah, reorganize your chi field. So it's very quick, very simple, and so powerful. So we start with that. And then we just type in "Hello Muse," just acknowledging that connection to our creative source. And then we type a 1 or 2 word intention in the chat box. It might be focus or clarity, it might be flow, and then there's some really creative ones we hear from time to time or something very specific, right? Write about the research on blah, blah, blah. Um and then we write for 45 minutes. We come back as a group, share insights or challenges. I might do a little laser coaching. And then we do a rinse and repeat. We do the whole thing in the second hour again. And there's always time at the end. First of all, gratitude. And I think gratitude is such an important, excuse me, practice for writers or any creatives because when we're not grateful, we set ourselves up for all the stuff that we don't want. And when we're grateful, we're setting ourselves up for the next time. And our relationship with our creative source, which many of us call the muse, it's like any relationship. If you feed it, if you nurture it, if you're grateful and nurturing of it, then it improves the relationship over time. And if you are grumbling and ungrateful
Right.
and complain and beat yourself up, but also you're beating up your creative self, that contributes to just more pain, I think. So that step of gratitude at the end, I find is really important because it's setting you up. And just notice, what am I grateful for? Grateful that I made this time. I trust that even though I didn't write much, important things happen to contribute to my next writing
Yes.
bout.
I'm glad you emphasized that because it's called breathe, write, then breathe. The ending is just as important. Sometimes we get up from the keyboard and go, okay, I got to get back to whatever was otherwise doing. And we forget to close it as you've described.
Yeah, and I think, like, when we do that entry and closing, there's something about acknowledging it as sacred time, right? It's like time out of time. And the more we acknowledge that, I think the more magical it can get. We really connect with these magical or mystical realms inside or just hyper creative realms inside. So it just improves our access, I think.
And maybe that's why you've said, as I stated in the intro, these life changing books. What is it about this process that does help the writing become maybe life changing to the reader, but certainly life changing to the author as well?
Yes, yeah, and I think when a book is life-changing to the author, the reader gets the benefit of that, right?
Ah, very nice.
But I think one thing is that these practices are really ancient, right? A lot of them are from millennia ago. And when people have practiced something and passed it down for that long a time, often in these sort of esoteric and secretive traditions, but now they're available to us. But there's a power that it gathers, the power of all the past people who've used it. And I think there are 2 things about that power. One is just things get refined, right? And they get more and more powerful. But also, I think it is like a path that's been well worn. And when you're walking in the woods and you walk a path that's been walked for centuries, you can feel that. And there is a way that that path becomes mm, empowered, I think, by all those who've walked it. And so I think that's part of why these practices are so incredibly juicy.
I love that. And certainly, in addition to life changing to authors and your clients, award winning is a title we or a description we love to add to books. This has been a rewarding and award winning experience for you too with this book. 9
Yeah.
book awards so far, and now a finalist for a Stevie Award. This book of the year for women in business. Tell us about the impact of the awards on the book, on the business of writing.
I traditionally published my first book, and that book did well. It was three of us who co-authored it, The Ultimate Guide to Transforming Anger. And I had the benefit of co-authoring with somebody who had done a lot of media before. She spoke at a lot of conferences as a keynote. That helped the book get in a lot of people's hands. And when I was contemplating how to publish my most recent 2 books, I really wanted to it was during COVID that the Joy of Writing journal came to my mind, and I was in the middle actually of Breathe, Write, Breathe, and I set it aside because it felt like this book wanted to be first. It was a simpler book in many ways, and it was right for its time. I think people were hungry for things like journaling, and I had a vision to make it more to help people connect through journaling. And so I have a colleague who advises authors how to add QR codes to their book so that people can watch videos and listen to audios that make the material come alive. And I felt like the videos of watching other people respond to some of the prompts in that book would give people some energy at a time when people were feeling somewhat isolated. And some of the responses people had to the questions were so fun and so playful and joyful that I thought it was just a mood booster too, and a wonderful way to start a journaling process. So I self-published that book and thought, how do I make this book stand out? And there's so many books published nowadays. A lot of them are garbage. Some of them are even made up by AI and make no sense. How do you send that message that this really is a good book? It's worth your time. And I thought awards are really the way to do that. And I have a wonderful awards consultant, Alyssa Sones, who's helped me figure out which awards to apply for, which are meaningful. And that's been a great process, and I actually recently I had applied for the Living Now Book Award for both books, and the first book, The Joy of Writing Journal, had won silver award, and then for that contest, and then Breathe, Write, Breathe recently won as well, and so they invited me to be a keynote speaker to all their awards winners, and of course, these are all award-winning authors, so they're the perfect people for me to be sharing this book with. So I think there are 2 things. There's that cachet and credibility that's important to make your book stand out. But then there's also opportunities you really don't know are gonna happen, and I think there I could list a whole bunch of things that happened because of the awards, but that was one, and actually the woman who invited me to do an award, we're now collaborating on something. So you just don't know what doors are gonna open, but I think anything like that, if you get excited about it and it feels like an expansive opportunity, there's probably more to it even than you realize at the time of how it's going to open doors or enlarge your life or your work in some way.
Yes. You touched upon one of the creative blocks I hear a lot, and that is, oh, there's billions of books. What will make mine different? I'm not as good as so and so who writes in my same genre or category. It's such a competitive market, and many
Mhm.
times this does hinder good authors from telling their story. How do you help us overcome that?
One of the first things I have authors do is connect to their vision. So, what do you want the book to do for you in your life, for your readers in their lives? And that requires understanding what's going on in their lives and who those readers are, and also in the broader world and community. And if you read that vision statement every day, you're gonna stay inspired, especially we work on that vision statement till it feels like a 10 to you. So
Mm.
we keep asking, like, what's missing if it's not a 10? What else is important to it? And then we try to refine it so it's a little shorter too. We do some editing because it can get long. But there's something about reading that regularly. And if it stops feeling like a 10 and it did feel like a 10, it means the book is changing. There's something new to it that we need to pay attention to. So it's a wonderful touchstone, but I think those activities of feeding, nourishing our creativity are really important. And so that's probably like number one. And the other things about self doubt are it's going to be there. I have it too. And you, to some extent, it's a voice, right, of the many like different competing personalities in one's one's inner world. And rather than try to push it away or fight against it, which I think just makes it more powerful, thanking it and saying, "Thanks. You know what? I have a different job for you to do." Instead of telling me I'm no good, it's not gonna work. You're gonna be really helpful when it's time to edit if you can just help me really refine some of the words, or you're gonna be helpful for give it another task. That can sometimes calm down that part of you, and that couldn't be done in a journaling exercise if you want. But I think it's an aspect of us, and that voice isn't gonna shut up if you tell it to shut up. I think we need to pay attention to it, and sometimes to just tell it, "I have other information, let me update you," that kind of thing.
I like that. I like the way you put that. Lisa, before I close, I want to make sure that people know how to find you and learn more about your work. Where can we connect with you?
Thank you. My website, lisatenner.com, is a great place, and I've got lots of free resources for authors and writers and creatives there. And I have a blog, and then I'm on social media. I'm sure you'll include all those links so
Definitely in
people
the
can
show notes,
connect.
you'll find them there. Yes. Perfect. You've given us such actionable stuff. And I guess as I close, to think about something, a listener who's wherever they are in their writing process, but something they could do tomorrow morning before they sit down and write that
Mhm.
1,000 words that they're feeling like they have to write, or before they journal or create a new character. What's something that we could start right away as a step towards opening up some of these new creative channels?
Yeah, one is just to do that water breath for a few minutes, in through the nose, out through the mouth, maybe with your hands on your abdomen so that you really know you're breathing deep into the abdomen. And, uh, just after a few minutes of that, saying, I welcome my muse, right? And maybe set a one word intention before writing. If you want to add some movement to that's great. You can just move however you feel, or you could do some qigong bouncing. And there's lots of videos. I have one on YouTube, but there are lots of qigong bouncing or shaking videos if you wanted to check it out. That's such a powerful practice.
And how fun, you know?
Yeah, and it is
Yeah,
fun.
turn on that music and do some shaking and bouncing. Feel like we're all TikTok influencers at that point. Yeah. Well, Lisa, I can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise and these practical techniques. But I really like the exploration we've had on the intersection now of creativity and these well being. You've described the breath and what that does to our health and being, which makes us a better writer.
That's right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And listeners, I hope you've gained from all Lisa's experience. Be sure to check out her work and her book, Breathe, Write, Breathe, and all her workshops at lisatenner.com. Thanks for coming by our podcast, and thanks to our sponsor, White Cloud Coffee. You can enjoy a 10% discount on your coffee order. What a great time of year to order coffee for yourself, your family, or friends as a gift. You can enjoy that 10% discount using the promo code CREATIVITY at checkout. Go to whitecloudcoffee.com. And come back again for our next episode. We're going to continue these round the world travels with creative practitioners. We've stopped off in Rhode Island today to talk to Lisa Tenner, and we'll continue our round the world journeys to talk to creatives about how they get inspired and organize ideas and get new techniques to get our work out into the world. So until next time, I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll keep unlocking your world of creativity. We'll see you next time.
Are you an author who's tired of the long waits and low royalties? Exact Rush is here to change the game. We specialize in publishing with precision, and we get your book to market in just 3 to 6 months, not years. But we're not just about books. We also support your photography, web design, and content creation needs. Our focus ranges from spirituality to pop culture, and we're excited about our diverse lineup of upcoming releases. So, if you're ready to keep more of your hard-earned money and get published faster, Exact Rush is your ticket. Visit exactrush.com and turn your creative dream into a profitable reality today.